I thought today would be a good time to provide an update on my original $17,000 price target for Bitcoin, where I said I was going to sell some in the event that we hit that price. And you have to remember, at the time of recording that video, this is where we were with Bitcoin. We were roughly at $16,000, and we had recovered from 10,500 all the way up to 16,500 or so at peak in roughly 30 hours. And actually it was a little bit less than that to reach the peak here. So the fact that we reached that point so rapidly was, in my opinion, a way to have very little support under the market. And we did see a little bit of a correction here. Now, what do I mean by very limited support under the market? Well, what I mean is that essentially when you skyrocket up like this, you have very little consolidation. Consolidation is what builds support and resistance. If you break out to the upside from the consolidation, it builds support. If you break out to the downside, it builds resistance. When you have no consolidations when you break out like this, this was a very rapid movement to the downside and a very rapid movement to the upside, meaning that right under Bitcoin, there is really no solid support levels unless you have to go back on the 1-day candles and find it all the way back here. You can see a few candle wicks that have touched this 13,700 level, and then you have one candle close to that level. That was where all of the support is, and funny enough, what do you know? That's the level that we tested after the correction multiple times. So if I pull back to this 6-hour candle here, you can see that there were multiple points where the candle wicks touched right around that 13,000 level. That 13,700 level is what I should say, excuse me. And it actually happened on an even more common frequency if you go onto the 1-hour candles, which I can't show you anymore, unfortunately, because we've moved past that point, and I don't think you can actually scroll back on GDAX, which is really annoying. But what's important to realize is that there was a lot of support at 13,750. And we saw a price bounce off of that level multiple times, and that also happens to be a longer-term support level if we go back here. So now we've built a little bit of support under Bitcoin. As a result of that, I'm a little bit more bullish than I was when I made that video. However, the support is all the way down at 13,750, meaning that I will still sell a little bit of Bitcoin if we see price go straight up to 17,000 from where we are right now. I would like to see a little bit more support get built up at roughly this $15,000 level, because that's the next level that really has substantial support. You can see multiple candles that have either opened or closed at that level in recent times, and also back here at the beginning of December. So what I really would like to see Bitcoin do at this point is I would like to see it pull back down to roughly this 15,000 to, somewhere in the lower 15,000s. I'd like to see it pull back down to. So let's pull back to the 1-hour candles here. I'd like to see it pull back down to this level roughly. And if it could consolidate in that level for a little while, that would provide adequate support for the market, and then I would be bullish if Bitcoin broke out to the upside. Because if we saw that happen, then I would see limited downside risk, because you're going to see substantial support at 15,000. That's what I mean by a healthy recovery, is you kind of don't go straight up. Instead, you have sort of this stepwise function almost, where you go up in stages, and by going up in stages, you build up support each time. Now, if you go over the long term, of course, Bitcoin has not grown in a stepwise type nature. It's really gone exponential at times. But when we do see a little bit of support here, I think that makes it so that there's less risk associated with investing. That's why it's so difficult to invest in Bitcoin when it's at all-time highs like this, because there's very little under the market to say, we have a support line somewhere. Well, when you are all the way in this particular candle, there's no support until you get all the way down to 10,000, right? So it is something that's important to note here, is that part of why I like a slower recovery is because it builds support under the market. And people actually look for support and resistance lines when it comes to Bitcoin. They may not use all of the other technical analysis just because a lot of times it's useless. For example, if you go back to this particular candle, the RSI is going to tell you it's extremely overbought, right? But even if you go on to some of these other candles, you probably would have seen that the RSI was extremely overbought then. And it still kept going up. There's been plenty of times where RSI has been overbought and Bitcoin just keeps going up, right? If you look through some of these previous candles here, that would have been the case. As a result of that, most technical analysis is useless in my opinion, but I still think that psychological price levels are important, and then I also think basic support and resistance lines are critical, and that's what leads to a healthy recovery. So what I would like to see is I'd like to see Bitcoin come back down to roughly 15,250 or so, maybe consolidate for a little bit, and then if we break out to the upside, I will remove that $17,000 limit order that I have, and I will just ride Bitcoin as long as it likes to go. What is important to note is I'm still going to sell some Bitcoin if we do go up to 17,000 from here, but it is going to be less than I initially planned to when I made the video back here. The reason why is because now we have a little bit of support. I have an idea of where Bitcoin can draw down to. I'm prepared for that. As a result of that, I will sell less Bitcoin than I originally intended to when I made that video. So despite the fact that I know a lot of you are going to mock me if we blow past 17,000, I will still have a substantial position in Bitcoin, and it won't matter. What's important to me in this particular market is because you can't predict when the bubble is going to burst, which to me it is a bubble, I like to take profits when I can. At this point, Bitcoin could go straight to zero, and I would still come out ahead in this particular market. That's how I've set up my portfolio. You should probably set up yours that way as well, at least in the sense that if we do see a substantial drawdown of Bitcoin, there's no way for you to lose. There's no reason you shouldn't come out of this market ahead financially. You shouldn't be so greedy that you lose more than your initial investment. That's insane. So that's something I do want everybody to keep in mind. And I just keep building up the stack of money that I make by taking profits here and there. So that's my strategy. I still have my limit order in. If we build a little bit more support at roughly 15,250 or so, then I'll turn more bullish and remove my limit order at 17,000 altogether. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video that's relevant for Bitcoin is the revival of the SegWit2x hard fork, because a lot of you have been asking me about this. Basically, SegWit2x is supposedly coming back, or I shouldn't even say supposedly. There is going to be a hard fork called SegWit2x at block 501451. The problem with this is that it's not really SegWit2x, like at all. Alright, so SegWit2x had a lot of community support behind it. It was huge, and it had the potential of taking over Bitcoin. This is not going to try to do any of those things, okay? It does not have huge community support. It's more just a cash grab, and none of it is like SegWit2x. They're going to change the hashing algorithm to X11, which is still ASIC mineable, okay? They're going to change the block speed. They're going to change the size of the blocks to 4 megabytes as opposed to 2 megabytes that SegWit2x was supposed to do. And in general, this entire new Bitcoin that we're going to have, they're saying that essentially they're not going to try to replace Bitcoin. It's just going to be some other altcoin, essentially. And to me, that's a joke. However, they are currently selling, apparently the futures are selling for a decent price. As a result of that, there is speculation that maybe Bitcoin has a little run up as a result of that. What I'm probably going to do is when we get close to that particular block, I'm going to take my Bitcoin off of this exchange, the Bitcoin that I do have on GDAX. I'm going to take all of it off the exchange, send it to my Ledger Nano, make sure that I get the Bitcoin SegWit2x, and then I will probably send back my Bitcoin to the exchange, and we'll see what happens from there. So essentially, even if we see price go up to 17,000 without coming back down to 15,000, if it does happen at around the point of where the SegWit2x hard fork is supposed to happen, then I'm going to have it on the Ledger Nano and not in the exchange, and I won't be selling it. So that's something to be mindful of as well. Now, the reason I'm doing this is not because I'm bullish on this particular cryptocurrency, because I'm not. I think this is a complete, forgive my bluntness, but I think this is going to be a complete joke. But we already know that complete jokes can be relatively successful if we look at Bitcoin Gold. I mean, this is insanity in my opinion. Bitcoin Gold is one of the biggest joke cryptocurrencies that exist out there, and yet it's ranked number 12 in market cap. And this is evidence to me of the stupidity that's in this market. And I really, forgive me if you're invested in Bitcoin Gold, but because it has 0% chance of replacing Bitcoin, really it has a 0% chance, then why wouldn't you just invest in the superior cryptocurrencies that do everything that Bitcoin Gold does, but don't have crappy developers and crappy development? Sorry, I know that that's really harsh and everything, but it is kind of insanity in my opinion. It does show that this market is irrational. As a result of that, I would like to get my Bitcoin SegWit2x, so I will be moving it over to my hardware wallet completely, which means I will have nothing on exchanges to sell in the event that we reach $17,000 at around that point. So that is the one other point I want to bring up. As to how it's going to affect Bitcoin's price, I have no idea. Maybe it's already affecting Bitcoin's price now. Maybe that's the reason why it's starting to see a little bit of a bullish stretch here, is people want to have Bitcoin for that hard fork, and then maybe we see a sell-off afterward. If previous hard forks have told us anything, it's that it's very difficult to predict what Bitcoin is going to do in the days leading up into a hard fork and then coming out of it. What I do know is that it has essentially acted as free money for anybody that has held through hard forks, and I want to get my free money. Even though it doesn't make any sense, it really doesn't. There is no reason that it should be free money, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. At some point the market's going to realize that, but until it does, I'm going to take advantage of this particular hard fork. It is not a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin, let me be very clear about that. There is zero potential for this particular cryptocurrency to be successful. It is just piggybacking off of the name of SegWit2x, because it's not even SegWit2x. It's basically SegWit4x. And then you also have other factors in there that are being completely changed. It's not even Bitcoin anymore. It's closer to Litecoin almost. So anyway, we'll see what happens with that. But again, if price goes up to 17,000 at that point, I will have all of my Bitcoin on my hardware wallet. And as a result of that, obviously I can't sell at that point. Should be interesting to see what happens though. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little update, or not so little update, on Bitcoin. As usual, I tend to be a little bit more active on my Steemit page than I am on YouTube, just because the number of comments is a little bit more manageable. It's also more accessible for you. There's times where I respond to the 500th comment on a YouTube video. It gets buried. There's no likes as a result of that. Nobody sees my response to that comment. So this is a nice location for you to see all my responses in one area. In addition to that, you can also kind of go back in time and see what my responses were, even if you watch this in the future. There's a monetary incentive for both you and I to post on the platform. You can see that I get paid quite a bit to do it. And then you as well, if you post a comment that a lot of people like, and I'm going to show you an example of one where somebody spent a lot of time writing the comment. If you spend a lot of time like this and other people like your comment, then you might actually get paid as well, like this particular person did. So that's something interesting for you to keep in mind. Even if you don't want to post on the platform, it can just be interesting to check out, just to see what other people have to say. So check out my Steemit if you're interested. Otherwise, leave a like, comment, and subscription. Make sure you hit the bell button so you get real-time notifications, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.